This episode of the Moonlight Graham Show is brought to you by The People's Company. Now, I know about as much about farming and land as our boy Ray Kinsella from the Field of Dreams, but the folks over at The People's Company are the experts in farmland brokerage, land management, land investment, and appraisal services. Started back in Indianola, Iowa, back in 1972. Indianola, the home of Casey Blake, of course. The People's Company are now land experts in 20 states across this great nation of ours, and they are the people to go to for all those services I just mentioned. You know how when you walk into a convenience store in any small town in Iowa, and there's usually a handful of farmers in the back sitting around a table drinking their morning coffee, and every one of them probably owns a bunch of land. Well, if you're one of those guys, or you know one of those guys, and you need help for any of your land brokerage services, your land management services, call Matt Adams and the guys over at The People's Company for any of those questions. They are the farmland experts right here, based in central Iowa, but operating all over this great country. The People's Company, the people to go to when you got farming questions.
This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show. Once again, I'm your host, Tim Flattery, and this is episode 75 of the podcast. And this week, I got to talk about the game last week, the game at the Field of Dreams that we played last week as the Fort Dodge Gypsum Eaters came out of 114 years of hibernation to take on the Kent Buccaneers last week at the Field of Dreams, and it lived up to expectations. Actually, it exceeded expectations. It was probably the most fun I've had on a baseball field, definitely in a decade, but it's right up there in the top 2 or 3 games that I've ever played in my life. It was that much fun, guys. And kind of to start the story off, the story goes back to last Sunday, so about 10 days ago, when I set up a practice for our team at Iowa Central's field in Fort Dodge, Ed Barber Field, and we got most of our team together on that Sunday. And at that point, none of us had really gotten together to play baseball in a long time. I mean, I rode from Des Moines up to Fort Dodge with my Uncle Mike, who is 68 years old, hasn't played a game of baseball in who knows, like 30 years, maybe 40 years. And on the ride up, I was telling my Uncle Mike, I said, Mike, you were in batting practice group number 2 of this week. I had the whole practice lined up, and he said, no way, I'm not going to hit. I'm just coming to, play a little catch and have a little fun. But what was great is once we got on the field last Sunday, everybody got really fired up about the game. We were snapping the ball around. We went through a full catch. We played our full stretch. We played some catch, and then we took an infield. So our infield consisted of guys age range 68 to 19 years old out on the field for the Gypsum Eaters last Sunday. Really the first time that many of us had been on the field together. Even though we're all related, we're a little bit spread out in age that I've never played baseball with my cousin Colin, who's 19 or 20 years old, or my cousin Robert, who's 19 or 20, or even my cousin David, who just got out of college this year where he played at Augustana and they actually won the national title. He's 23 years old. I'm 32, so we're just far enough in age where we've never played together. So it was a really special experience just to go out and practice. And we had a full practice. Like I said, we played catch, we took an infield, then we took 3 rounds of batting practice. And even my Uncle Mike, who, like I said, is 68 years old, took 3 rounds of batting practice. We're swinging wood bats. My Uncle Dan, who popped his Achilles like 30 years ago, probably hasn't played a baseball game in 30 years, took 3 full rounds of batting practice without really expecting to play. And everybody just had a great time. And I said it to a couple of people after that practice, if that was it, if that was the whole event, it was worth it. Just getting family together to get on a baseball field, to play catch and to practice, it made it so much fun. And the big conversation after the practice was, are we going to be so sore? Because we were flying around at practice. We were pretty excited. Are we going to be so sore that we're not even going to be able to play on Tuesday? But I think we all knew that there was going to be plenty of adrenaline running through the body on Tuesday for the big game, the Gypsum Eaters against the Kent Buccaneers at the Field of Dreams. But my big worry was, first of all, if you remember last Monday night, the whole state of Iowa got rain last Monday. It moved, of course, from west to east across the state from Sunday night through Monday. So Monday, Dyersville, Iowa, where the Field of Dreams is located, got pounded with rain all day long up until like 3 a.m. on Tuesday morning. So my big concern was, does the Field of Dreams have a field maintenance crew? Do they have a field guy? Is somebody going to be taking care of the field? Because as anybody knows that's ever played baseball or that's ever experienced a rainout, if there's not a tarp on the infield, or if somebody's not out early after the night before that it's rained and turn over to the dirt, dragging the infield, putting a rake on that dirt, you could very easily get rained out even if it never rains that day. So that was my big concern. So Tuesday morning, I got on the road from Des Moines at about noon, and I just pedal to the metal, got over to Dyersville as quickly as I could. I got to the Field of Dreams around 2:30 because I was concerned. I was actually emailing the Field of Dreams people saying, if you need help getting the field ready, I'm going to be there at 2:30. I'll be ready to rake. And I was fully ready to do field maintenance work at 2:30. I get to the Field of Dreams all by myself at 2:30, and it's just an amazing place, guys. If you haven't been to the Field of Dreams in a while, you need to get there. I pull in down the gravel road, and I'm just blown away by the setting. It is in the rolling hills of eastern Iowa. You can hear cows mooing from a couple of 100 yards away at the farm next door. It sits in a little bit of a valley with these rolling hills of corn all around it, and the field was perfect. I got there worried so much that there was going to be standing water on the field, that it was going to look like crap. I pull in, somebody had been out there, the infield was already dragged, the grass had been freshly cut that morning, and it looked like as good of a baseball field as I have seen in a long, long time. Even as I got there was probably 22 on the field. There was an old man pitching to his young grandson taking batting practice. There was people all over the place taking pictures. There were traveling salesmen that were walking around just laughing like little kids, taking pictures in the corn. It was picturesque. And this was just a Tuesday afternoon in August. It was amazing that this place still was drawing crowds at 2:30 on a random Tuesday. So I walked out, I measured out the field, I stepped off how far it was to right field and left field, and it's about 300 feet to left field by my calculations. It's about 280 to right, probably 325 to center by the way I marked it out. And I get on the phone and I called my dad and I called my brothers and I said, you're not going to believe it, but it is perfect, guys. The Field of Dreams is going to be awesome tonight. And so really, I just sat there at the Field of Dreams from probably 2:30 to 3 o'clock, sitting on the bleachers out in left field with this beautiful view of the field and just kind of letting it all soak in and imagining how much fun that was going to be. And I got even more excited about the night, knowing that the field was in great shape. The mound was in great shape. So then after that point, went back to the hotel. All of my family's kind of getting there at the same time. My cousins, my parents, some of my brothers. And, it's not like the Flattery family for this game. We all got in our school bus out of Fort Dodge and we drove to Dyersville. People were coming from all over for this game. We came from Lincoln, Nebraska, Topeka, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, Des Moines, Fort Dodge, all over the place for this game. So it really took a lot for us to get coordinated to get there, but everybody was excited. Everybody got there around that time. And we actually head over to the Dyersville Beckman Field because I got in touch with Fred Martin, the head baseball coach over at Dyersville Beckman. Nick Ung's previous Moonlighter had got me in touch with Fred Martin, the head baseball coach at Dyersville Beckman. He got us opened into the Dyersville Beckman batting cages. So we went over to Beckman. We took a batting practice in the cages for about an hour before we headed over to the field at about 5 o'clock. So we got to the field about 5 o'clock. And by the time we got there, the Kent Buccaneers were already there. So the Kent Buccaneers, my first impression of those guys were, okay, these guys are baseball guys, right? You didn't really know what to expect from a group of guys coming from England, Ireland, Scotland, South Africa, Australia, America, Canada. There were actually 6 countries represented on the Kent Buccaneers. So it was really just a collection of number one, great guys, number two, baseball fanatics, and also like a really cool global team that they had collected to come to the Field of Dreams and live out their dream. So right when we pull in, these guys are out in the outfield taking pictures in the corn. They're playing catch, and right away you can tell like these guys have played baseball. You know, they're not a bunch of guys that have never played before. They're snapping the ball around pretty good. They look good in the uniform. So at that point we thought this is going to be a really good game. It's going to be a real game. We're excited for tonight. But then it's just like trying to control your nerves because it's so exciting to be at the Field of Dreams, to run around. I think me and my brother Neil right away, we just started doing sprints in the outfield just to burn off energy. So of course we had some setting up to do. Like we brought in a sound system to play music and to announce, like do the announcements of the starting lineups and everything, because, you know, we did go a little over the top of it with it, but that's kind of what made it fun too. So we warmed up from about 5 to 5:30, you know, sprinting in the outfield, playing catch, getting our arms loose, laying out the lineup, putting our uniforms on, all that stuff. And about 5:30, I went over to John Carter, the manager of the Kent Buccaneers, and I said, hey, we're going to take an infield here, and if you guys want to take an infield after us, then we can all walk out of the corn, we'll sing the national anthems, and then we'll get this thing underway. And he's like, yep, that sounds good with us. So we go out there and we take a full infield, and it was, we were so excited. If you guys could have seen it, we're snapping the ball around. It's like, if you remember the first scene of when Scotty Smalls in the movie Sandlot comes to the Sandlot and they're taking an infield and they're just snapping around, turning double plays, everybody's sprinting in everywhere. That's kind of what our team looked like, just because we were so excited. You know, it's like, you know, hey, take two, and you're just snapping around. Everybody's hitting the cutoff. Everybody's looking sharp. We're sprinting all over the field. And by the time we get done with our infield, I went over to the Kent Buccaneers because they weren't taking the field. And I said, are you guys going to take an infield? And John's like, oh no, like we're not ready. We're not prepared for something like that. And it got me thinking, like, these guys from overseas, they watch a lot of baseball. They're baseball fanatics, but I wonder if they've ever seen an infield before, because I would have no idea how an English soccer team warms up. I would have no idea how like a rugby team warms up. And I wonder if they know how Americans get ready for a baseball game with like an infield, because I really don't think that they were prepared to take an infield. You know, you hit them out to the outfield, you throw to the different bases, you throw it home, you hit it around the infield, first base, double plays, one in cover, and then you kind of do a home and a one. And I don't think they probably had ever seen that before. And so they didn't take an infield. So at that point, we chalked up the fields, and what was cool is we got a couple of umpires. Our job was to bring umpires to the game, and a couple of the umpires that we brought were just local guys from Dyersville. We paid them. They weren't volunteers. But our home plate umpire was a guy by the name of Frank Dardis. And Frank Dardis, if you listen to last week's episode about the Field of Dream Ghost players, Frank Dardis was actually a Field of Dreams Ghost player, and I think he's still involved with the Field of Dreams Ghost players. So Frank Dardis was actually in the movie Field of Dreams. So the guy that umpired our game behind the plate, and let me tell you, he had a tight strike zone, but the guy that umpired the game behind the plate, Frank Dardis, was in the movie Field of Dreams as a ghost player, and he was part of the traveling ghost player teams that Keith Ray, our episode of from last week, talked about. So that was kind of cool that it really tied in the local community and the local story and the movie Field of Dreams to our game. So Frank Dardis guys and the grounds crew chalked up the field. We got the field ready to play. And then we actually walked out of the cornfield, guys. My cousin Sean Flattery, he drove all the way from Lincoln, Nebraska. He was running the PA. He had this, after 114 years, the Fort Dodge Gypsum Eaters returned to action, and we had the Field of Dreams music playing. It was awesome. We walk out of the cornfield to the Field of Dreams music. We line up along the third baseline. We do the starting lineups, and then my cousin Sean Flattery is a fantastic singer. He actually sang the Star Spangled Banner, and then he sang God Save the Queen. He knew the first verse of God Save the Queen, so he sang both anthems, and then we played ball. The Kent Buccaneers were the home team, even though this wasn't their own country. Since they paid for the field, they were the home team, and we got the first at bat. And like I said, it was really just one of these pinch yourself type moments. So starting pitcher for their team was John Carter. They take the field. You could tell right away John Carter plays a lot of baseball. The guy's probably, I don't know, late 30s, maybe early 40s, but you can tell like he knew his stuff. He had a fastball, curveball, changeup. He threw a knuckleball at one point, and right away you could tell that these guys, they knew what they were doing from a baseball standpoint. So it was so much fun. I took the mound for the Gypsum Eaters. Of course, I put the lineup together, so I'm going to take the ball. I took the ball in the bottom of the first inning, and if you remember from the movie Field of Dreams, when Ray Kinsella is pitching to Shoeless Joe Jackson, he's talking to himself. He said, I am pitching to Shoeless Joe Jackson. And I had one of those same type of moments. Before I threw the first pitch, I look around the diamond, and my dad's playing first base. My brother Neil's playing third. My brother Andy's playing left. My brother Joey's playing center. My cousins and my uncles are all around the field, and it's just like I am playing a baseball game at the Field of Dreams. And it was the coolest moment ever. And so I got through the first inning. Actually, the first batter that I faced was Ben Carter, John Carter's brother, and I think a 1-2 pitch. He hit a ground ball to first base, and so my dad's playing first base. He hits Ben Carter hits kind of this chopper up the first baseline, and I got to cover first. We haven't worked on this in the offseason, spring training, PFPs. So I got to cover first base the very first play of the game. We executed the play, snapped it around the infield after that. So I go the first 3 innings on the mound. My brother Joey goes the 4th inning on the mound. Joey, of course, played for Kansas State. He played minor league with the Detroit Tigers organization, and he looked really good in the 4th. I think he struck out the side in the 4th. My dad threw the 5th inning. So my dad's 59 years old. Some of his buddies, Keith Ray included, were at the game watching it, and they were giving him a hard time. And he was a little bit nervous throwing the 5th inning because he hasn't pitched in a real game in like probably 10 years. And he was a little bit nervous because his buddies were giving him a hard time. So before the inning, he's saying, hey, get the bullpen up early. But you could tell from the get-go that he was going to be ready to go. That meant a lot to him. So the first batter that he faced, I'm playing shortstop. The first batter that my dad faced hits an absolute seed right at me. I mean, a line drive right on the numbers. It short hops me. I try to wear it off the chest to knock it down and throw it over the first base. It bounces off my bicep for an error into the center field. So my dad's first batter that he faced, I make an error, and I'm thinking the whole time, I can't be the reason why they score a run. The next guy, so the runner actually steals second. They have a scoring threat going on. Runner on second, nobody out. My dad walks the next hitter. So we got first and second, nobody out at this point. Next hitter hits a soft line drive up over the middle, looked like a base hit. My cousin Robert made a really great backhanded play to catch the ball in the air for the out, keeps the runners in position. So then we have first and second, 1 out. My dad gets another walk. He was a little getting squeezed by Frank Dardis here, so bases loaded, 1 out. He gets a strikeout and then the ground ball to get out of the inning. So that was actually the Kent Buccaneers' biggest scoring threat was there in the 5th. They loaded the bases with 1 out. but my dad got out of the jam at 59 years old. You could tell after he got a couple of guys on, he humped up the velocity a little bit. He spun a couple of curveballs that got him some strikeouts, and he bared down. Good pitching performance there by my dad. The 6th inning, Robert Flattery is like 20 years old, still in really good shape, plays college golf. He threw the 6th inning. The 7th inning, John Flattery, who played Division II baseball, he took them out in the 7th. I think he walked a guy. They got a runner on base that inning, but he got through that inning. The 8th inning, my brother Neil pitched. Neil walked a couple of guys there too, but we got out of that jam. And then the 9th inning, we closed it out with my 63-year-old uncle Terry Flattery, who's still in great shape, still throws the ball really well. He threw the 9th, and actually Terry, he beamed the first guy. But then we got a double play ball in the 9th, and then we got another ground ball to end the game. So that's how it was. From an offensive perspective, the highlight of the game, of course, was David Flattery. David went actually 6 for 6. He had 4 singles and 2 doubles. David went 6 for 6. John Flattery had a couple of hits as well. John's a really good hitter. He's like 27 years old. His hands are still really quick. You can tell he plays a lot of slow pitch and took a lot of batting practice and preparation. In the 2nd inning of the game, John put one about 20 rows deep out in right center, just crushed the ball out there. But really the MVP and the star of the game was Terry. Terry's 63 years old, pitched the 9th inning, went 3 for 4 at the plate. A double, 2 singles, and really just stung the ball. Was pretty impressive. And actually Frank Dardis, the umpire, wants Terry now to play on his like over 60 team down in Arizona at some national tournament. So Terry was the star of the game, but really it was so much fun all the way around. My 68-year-old uncle Mike, who probably hasn't played a baseball game in 40 years, he played first base for an inning. Everybody got a play. Everybody but Mike got at bats. And, most everybody guys got a hits, and people. So the final score was 17-0, right? And people will say like, oh my gosh, these guys weren't any good. The score does not indicate the quality of play by the Kent Buccaneers, because first of all, their starting 9 was a pretty good 9, but they had close to 20 guys and they played everybody. And so by halfway through the game, they were playing everybody. So some of their guys are like in their 50s, right? Not everybody's in their 20s and 30s. And a couple of times we'd have a runner on or 2 runners on with 2 outs, and the ball would find a guy that was 50 years old or that hadn't played in a while, and he might make an error, and then a couple of runs scored. So, some of our runs were due to that fact, but overall, the Kent Buccaneers, you could tell these guys played a lot of baseball. They were good baseball guys, but we had definitely probably more, college experience. I mean, we have guys on our team where we had 6 guys, I think, that have played Division I baseball, a couple of guys that have played Division II baseball. We had 3 guys that played professionally. So it was a little, we had a pretty stacked roster if you looked at it that way. But everybody had a lot of fun. I mean, I was playing second base in the 8th inning. My uncle Mike, 68 years old, is playing first base, and he had just been on a vacation over to Ireland. Guy gets on base from Ireland, and you can just hear these guys having this really fun conversation about Ireland and where they went on the vacation and the River Shannon and the whole deal. And there were conversations like that all night long. When I got on base, you're talking to these guys, hey, who do you cheer for? And they're like, I'm a Twins fan, or I'm a Mets fan, or I'm a Blue Jays fan. And that was really fun because we all connected because of the game of baseball. So everybody had a great time. And one thing I forgot to mention, even before the game, the Kent Buccaneers all gave us like commemorative Kent Buccaneer pins they gave to us, which was really neat. So the final score was 17-0. After the game, we all got together. We took pictures at home plate. And let me tell you guys, if you haven't been, it's one thing to go to the Field of Dreams. It's another thing to see the sunset while you're at the Field of Dreams. Twilight, the lights are on. And by the end of the night, when it's 9:30, when it's 10 o'clock, and all it is light, it is such a magical place. There's almost a glow about the field. And we got to experience that and take all these pictures, these great pictures, for about a half an hour. And those are times like, thank God we documented these, because we'll never be able to replace that time. And I wish we did more from a video standpoint, because it was so cool. Like, if you remember in the movie Field of Dreams, when Ray Kinsella and his wife are having a picnic on the Field of Dreams, and Ray says, I have constructed something. I've made something so completely illogical. And you could totally drink that moment in, because the whole thing felt kind of illogical and magical. And I got to take a picture with my beautiful fiance, Tori, on the Field of Dreams, sitting in the same spot Ray Kinsella did, Kevin Costner did while filming that movie, and just look around and think, this is just a magical moment to be with these great guys from all over the world, to be with my family, to be with my loved ones. It was just an irreplaceable night. There'll never be another baseball game like that for the rest of my life. Even though we want to get together as the Fort Dodge Gypsum Eaters again, we'll never be able to replace that night we had last Tuesday, August 21st. And so for that last half hour of the night, we took pictures with the Kent Buccaneers. I took pictures with my brothers, with my dad, with my cousins. We got some great shots. You got to see these shots of us in the twilight, in the dark, as a team in front of the corn. We got great videos walking into the darkness of the corn at the end of the night, coming back out of the corn. The Kent Buccaneers did as well. And it was just so worth it that I didn't want to leave the field. I mean, we were hugging each other, and there were tears in my eyes. And the whole night was kind of magical like that, where you're looking around throughout the entire game thinking, this is actually what we're doing. And I couldn't stop smiling. I'd look over at my cousin David during the middle of the game, and I was like, David, can you believe this? And he'd look back and he goes, you can actually hear the cows mooing from the farm next door. It was so legit. It was so real. It was not produced or manufactured at all. It was just beautiful in every sense of the word. And at the end of the night, my older brother, who drove 7 hours to get there from Kansas City, he comes up and he had to drive 7 hours back that very night. And he hugs me and he just goes, thanks for putting this all together. And I almost started crying right there, because my brother and I haven't played a baseball game together in 15 years. We haven't played a baseball game together since 2003. My dad and I have only played on the same team once or twice in our entire lives, and we got to do it in a real competitive game last Tuesday. And so when I hugged my brother Andy, who's closer to me than anyone in the world, I about started crying, and then I had just these tears in my eyes. And then again, my Uncle Dan, like I said, my Uncle Dan popped his Achilles probably 25 years ago. He probably hasn't played a baseball game in 30 years. And at the end of the night, Dan came up to me and he just says, thank you for putting it on. And really all the thanks goes to the Kent Buccaneers and John Carter. And thank God I saw these guys on Twitter, but my Uncle Dan says, thanks for putting it on. I never thought I'd play baseball again. Like Dan was drafted in college. He was, 3-time Iowa State defensive MVP. He was all Big 8. He played in the Cape Cod League. He was drafted professionally, like I said, and he hasn't played a baseball game in 30 years. And he got 2 at-bats, and he got to play the field, and you could tell just how much it meant to him and how much it meant for him to play with his son and play with all of us, that it was just so special. And I know we're kind of talking, I'm kind of bragging about my family a little bit, and I'm talking a lot about my family, but I think the purpose of all this and what I realize is that if you have a chance, guys, if you're listening to this show and you have a chance to do something special with, your dad or your mom or your brother or your wife or your cousins or, your buddies or whatever it is, and it's just out there and it's just, you haven't put a date on it or just hanging, go do it. Because the night that my family had and the night that I had with my dad and my brothers and my mom and my sister and my fiance and my aunts and my cousins and just everybody last, it was something that we're all going to be talking about for the rest of our lives. And we won't be able to replace that. So if you have something like that with someone that you love, go do it. And if there's something that's on your mind that you want to tell somebody that you love them, or you want to do something for someone that you care about, or reach out to somebody who haven't talked to in a while, go do it, because life is so short. I don't know if I'll ever have a chance ever to play baseball with my relatives ever again. But then again, I don't know if I'll have a chance to, see some of these people in my life ever again. And so life is so short. Make the most of it. Do something special, even if it's just really simple for someone that you love, someone that you care about. And that's really the moral of the story that came out of last week's game. It was special in 100 different ways, but I think it was most special because we got to do something really special to us that was intimate to us with the people that we love, and everybody got to share it. I mean, heck, even my mom's parents, my grandma and grandpa Nielsen, they got to be there for it, which was really special. My grandpa Nielsen got to keep the scorebook for us. He's an accountant by trade, so he really enjoyed keeping the scorebook, but it was a special night all the way around. So that's the story of the Field of Dreams. That's the story of the Gypsum Eaters' return after 114 years. Go out, do something you love with a loved one this week, folks. That's what this week's Moonlight Challenge. Find somebody you love, somebody that you care about, somebody that you haven't reached out to a while, and go do something with someone you love. That's your challenge for this week. That's the Moonlight Challenge. Special thanks to everybody that made it happen, especially John Carter and the Kent Buccaneers, Frank Dardis and the umpires over at Dyersville, Keith Ray over with the Gypsum Eaters, Fred Martin for letting us use the batting cages, Nick Ungs for hooking us up with that, the people of Dyersville that came out to watch. We probably had 75 people that came out to watch. Everybody that came out to watch, thank you for doing that. Thanks to all my family for showing up. Thanks for my cousin Sean Flattery for driving over for Lincoln and driving back that night to sing the anthems and to take 1,000 pictures. If you go to our YouTube channel, we're going to have all those pictures up today to check them out. We got some really great magical shots. Thank you to Eric Pratt, Dana Becker, and the Fort Dodge Messenger. They've done a couple stories on the Gypsum Eaters, so I appreciate the coverage there as well. Thank you also to our sponsors, The People's Company and Matt Adams. Head out to their website at thepeoplescompany.com. Check them out. They've been great supporters of the podcast. Also, Scissors and Scotch. Head over to scissorsandscotch.com, or if you're looking for a new spot to get your hair cut in Omaha, Kansas City, Des Moines, Denver, Oklahoma City, head over to Scissors and Scotch. They're the best in the business, guys. And thank you, as always, to the listeners of the podcast. Make sure, if you like what we're doing here, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher. We'd love it if you left us a 5-star review. Also, if you want some custom-made Gypsum Eaters gear, some Gypsum Eaters swag, check out our website, guys. We have some of the coolest shirts designed by Brendan Gargano and hats up. The hats that we have made are going to be legit. They're top of the line. Everything that we're creating, from the shirts to the hats, is going to be top quality material. These aren't going to be cheap shirts that you're getting, so we feel like they're a pretty good deal at our price points. If you want to take some of that home with you, head over to our website there. But as always, folks, thanks for listening, and thanks for the support. I got to take just a minute to talk about Scissors and Scotch. A few years back, a guy on my rec basketball team showed up for a game with the best haircut anybody on our team had seen in a while, and before too long, our whole squad was getting our haircut at Scissors and Scotch. It's the best male grooming experience I've ever had. You can go there to get your hair cut, shaves, trims, waxes. Heck, you can even get your shoes shined at Scissors and Scotch. And then after you get all cleaned up, head over to their bar for a cold one, some coffee, whatever drink you need in their private men's lounge. Scissors and Scotch, it's the best male grooming experience every man needs. Check them out in Denver, Omaha, Oklahoma City, and Des Moines. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of the Moonlight Graham Show. A special thanks goes out to Brian Sandvig, who does all the finishing and production of our episodes, Brendan Gargano, who does all of our design work and cover art, Tommy Griffin, who's in studio so often with us and helps us out on social media, and of course, my brothers Andy and Neil, who do so much with each episode and helping to book guests and making this show happen. So, but most of all, thanks to you, the fans, the Moonlighters out there who listen each and every week, and a special thanks to our sponsors, Scissors and Scotch and Ebbets Field Flannel. And as a reminder, head over to ebbets.com, type in the promo code Moonlight10, and get 10% off your next purchase at ebbets.com.